Hi, welcome to this lesson on the tarot, and we're on to the magician. And I think this is one of my favorite cards in the tarot for probably very obvious reasons. One thing I wanted to point out before we go any further is that the tarot we're using is going to be the Rider-Waite and the Thoth tarot for reasons we've already explained. And the other thing I wanted to point out was that we know there are 78 cards in the tarot deck, but that doesn't mean there are 78 lessons. The way this is structured is that we'll take some of the cards singly, i.e., the major arcanas, in single cards once a month, but sometimes we may double the cards up and do two a month, especially when you get used to the way this works. The other thing is that the 56 minor cards do not have a session all on their own. In fact, we're going to break the minor cards down into four suits and deal with the minor cards in terms of suits. So, for those of you who are enjoying this and thinking, hang on a minute, I've got 78 months of this stuff. No, you haven't. You've got far less than that. And I hope by sticking with it, you're going to really enjoy what we're talking about and how we're doing it. So let me just get the screen up. And there we go. So welcome to this Tarot Masterclass. It is a masterclass in the sense that I'm hoping that even if you've done the tarot or used or explored the tarot before, this will take you so many steps further forward. And if you've not done the tarot, then it's at a level that you can join in and get going with us. This is the magician, and we're going to focus on the magician, and we're going to start talking about that. And so, welcome to the lesson. So there's the magician in the two decks of cards that we're talking about. There's the Rider-Waite, or sorry, I should say the Pamela Coleman Smith Rider-Waite on the left, and the Frida Harris Crowley deck on the right. And the magician. They're both numbered one. If you remember that the Fool was numbered zero, because the Fool stands outside of the journey. The Fool is the character, the individual that is going through all the phases represented by the other cards. I think, as I mentioned last time, the Fool is you. No, no offense intended, but you are the fool undergoing the journey. And the wise fool is a popular idea, certainly in mythology, the wisdom of the fool, and the idea that the fool is actually open to learning other things, which is why you're here. So let's look at the magician in a bit of detail. And to say a lot of the information and more detailed information will be in the notes that come with this lesson. So I hope you get a chance to look at those. We've got to start by looking, and this is something I can't actually emphasize enough. The problem with trying to study the tarot is that people are, shall we say, seduced into looking at the book that goes with the tarot cards they purchase or the textbook that goes with it. And they wait for the textbook to create the meaning. I think the tarot works the other way around. You look at the imagery, you get an initial kind of sense for yourself, and then you start to explore the symbolism within it. And then, of course, if you want to go to the textbook. So, as I said last time, put any booklet that comes with the tarot aside, try to avoid looking at it. Squint at the card and notice the dominant colors and patterns. Look for the largest, most prominent object or objects. Look at the background, notice other things, and notice any actions that are in there. And use your journal. Okay, and I would recommend, if you haven't looked at the magician properly yet, stop this lecture now. And use your journal to observe those things. And as we go through it together, hopefully you'll pick up some more ideas. So there is the magician in the Pamela Harris Rider-Waite deck. I love this card for loads of reasons. Um, and we'll explore that in a bit more detail now. But as you look at the card, what are you noticing? What's the first thing that you're noticing? What is the central character, the central object, if you like? Who's the object of our focus? What objects are there on the table or the altar? Um, what is framing the image? Anything that stands out to you about the colours? Okay, now we know that from the Fool, yellow was an interesting colour. Um, and yellow, we know, is associated with the element of air. So could we suggest that this card is being about being airy in nature? But air, remember, is intellect. Air is thought. And without thought, there can be no words. Without words, there can be no manifestation. I have to think of that. The character is in robes. So let's unpick this image a little bit more as we go through it. So what are the main colors? Well, yellow is the background, and then we've got red and white robes and red and white flowers. Now we've mentioned the background already. We've mentioned the kind of the yellowness, but what about these flowers? We have flowers that are growing up that are red and white, and we have flowers that are hanging down that are only red. What does that mean? Is it just a clever design to echo the colors of the robes? What if we consider white to be purity, spiritual purity, innocence, and we consider red to be cosmic action, for example? Then it makes sense that growing up from the ground are red and white flowers, which is a mix of, let's use the word energies, but I'm using that in a kind of very broad sense. And hanging down from above is the spiritual stuff, the red stuff, the passionate stuff, the drive, the focus, the will. Consider that one. And what about any other colours there? Well, you notice that the chalice and the pentacle on the table are both yellow, and it's only the staff and the sword that have any kind of colour at all. Is that telling us anything, or does it imply that the chalice and the pentacle, that's the disc with the five-pointed star on, if you're looking for the word pentacle, um, does that imply that the chalice and the pentacle are gold rather than yellow? You need to think about that. And so, what's the story here? What? There is a character standing behind a table or an altar with weapons on it, and they're holding something pointing in the air, and they're pointing to the ground. What is it? Is this a commanding figure? Is the commander being assertive, organized, practical? Notice the stance, one hand raised above the head, which actually, if you turn the card around and make him from the character's point of view, it's the right hand being held high and the left hand pointing to the ground. What's all that about? And notice there's an infinity symbol above the character's head. What's going on there? The magician is ready to perform magic. And in this instance, ceremonial magic. In some earlier versions of the tarot, the card is sometimes called Le Batelier or the Juggler. And what we see in those earlier cards is the theatrical magician or trickster at a table doing cups and balls. Very old magic trick. And the suggestion with these older decks is that the magician was actually in the guise of the trickster, was actually tricking you, conning you, fooling you. When Frida Harris and Pamela Coleman Smith came to approach their versions of the tarot, and this one's the Pamela Coleman Smith version, they were doing these cards as a set of occult teachings, of symbolic references for the particular mystery schools that they belonged to. And in both cases, it would have been the Golden Dawn. And so they wanted the cards to embody occult or esoteric principles. So if we consider that, then we know that the gesture of the magician here is holding a scroll, perhaps, in their right hand and pointing skyward, and they're pointing to the ground with their left hand. That symbol, in very old Hermetic texts, is known as above, so below, which is a very powerful idea that what is going on in the universe or the cosmos and what is going on at Earth and the material plane is linked. The magician here is holding a scroll towards the heavens. Is that scroll to put the magician's words into the heavens or to receive the words of cosmos? Interesting idea and one to play with. Does a magician actually take the word of, for want of a phrase, God or goddess or the deities or the cosmos and translate it for us to hear? Is the magician that egotistical to think they can actually do that? And of course, above the head is the figure of eight, the infinity symbol, which really is that idea of what goes around comes around. It's going on and on and on in a repeating pattern. One of the most famous drawings of the infinity symbol is the Orobus, which is the snake eating its own tail, which is a symbol of it goes on and on and forever. And the question here is what comes first? You know, is it chicken and egg? What is happening here? Is the magician simply performing the will of the cosmos, or is the magician controlling the cosmos? Or is it a bit of both? And notice that not only is this magician standing behind the altar or table, there are four weapons, four items on the table, the chalice, the pentacle, the sword, and the staff. Each one of those is a suit of the tarot. So the magician has the suits of the tarot laid out before him or herself to look at commanding the universe or understanding. Commanding and understanding are quite interesting opposites, aren't they? Do we command something because we understand it? And do we understand something because we command it? So, with the magician's tools, they're there to connect that person to the four major elements: earth, air, fire, water. And that magician is free to use those elements in any way they choose, or in any way that the cosmos chooses to help them understand it. And as I probably mentioned before, just so you get a grip on these four suits, which is really important, the cup is emotions, the pentacle is earth, the staff is usually fire, and the sword is air. So earth, air, fire, and water are represented in those elements, and they are either at rest or they're there for the magician to pick up. Because the magician isn't responding to the elements, the magician is responding to whatever is in that scroll of paper. The magician is earthly, but unearthly. And here's the thing, the magician, it's very easy to fall into the trap of thinking about modern performing magicians or modern occultists who claim to be magicians without realizing that the magician is an archetype, a structure, an idea that exists within all of us. We are all magicians. We are all creators of our destiny. And if you like, we're also roles and characters in our own destiny. And understanding how that is shaped maybe gives us some power and control. There's a lot in this image. And when you read the text that goes with this, hopefully you'll start to think about it. So, as I say, what else is there? Table, cup, sword, chalice, staff, pentacle, infinity. Those are the things that go with the image that give it a depth and a meaning, and in many ways are the clues to understanding the mystery of the magician. Okay, and think about it in those terms that when you look at a tarot card, particularly in the major arcana, when you look at a tarot card, there are often images and symbols that are there to provoke, to inspire, to help you raise questions about what it is you're looking at. And also to find a connection to yourself, which is why putting the textbooks that come with these aside is so important. For example, if you were to open a guidebook that comes with The Magician, you will read a lot of keywords about power, ego, manifestation, but they don't tell you the full story. The way we're doing it here is you're digging deep into the imagery to tell a story. And notice that story will change depending on who you are when you tell the story. There's that wonderful saying that you can't jump into the same river twice. Because when you jump into a river, it was a specific moment in time. If you get out of the river, you are a bit older, a bit more experienced, probably wetter, and the river and the water has moved on. It's not the same water. So every time you look at a tarot card, something new may well pop out at you. And when you start to look at the tarot in a sequence, as we will do later on in the course, you'll start to understand there's a deeper significant, a deeper set of messages that only you can create for yourself. So how are you going to pull all this together in terms of your meanings? Well, hopefully you've got your trusty journal open, and hopefully things as I talk and when you read later on are going to trigger with you. And it's the things that trigger with you that you pay the most attention to. So what is your initial reaction to the magician card? Are you put off by the title? I hated magic. I didn't like Paul Daniels or David Copperfield or David Blaine, whoever. Is that the direction your thinking goes, or does your direction go to those old movies about the occult masters conjuring up demons and summoning angels? Is that where your thinking goes? Or does your thinking about magician go to the word trickster, con artist? Is that what it goes? Are these your initial reactions? And then once you've got your initial reactions in your journal, then you start to move on to looking at those symbolic references. I've given you some clues already, but that's what we're really looking at. And then your research is the mystical references. When we come on to the Thoth Tarot, there's far more research to do because that's the nature of the Thoth deck. And then the question to be answered really is, who is the magician? You know, I suppose, what is the magician as well? Some of you know that I'm very interested in stage magic, performance magic. I mean that in terms of illusions, and I've done a fair bit of that in my time. And for me, one of the greatest illusionists, let's call them magicians because they wouldn't like the word illusionists, is an American guy who works mostly in Las Vegas but has toured worldwide, called Jeff McBride. He's been on numerous television shows. He has an act that is totally mystical. And when you see his act, it works on a number of different levels. It works on the level of being kind of mystery because you don't know how he's doing what he's doing. And then it works on a level of there's a symbolic meaning to this. And then it works on a level that you can actually learn from those symbols. He is what I would call a magician. And I've been on a number of workshops with Jeff and I've performed with Jeff. And he used to have a friend who's unfortunately passed now, a guy called Eugene Berger, who for me was the epitome of what a magician is. And both Eugene and Jeff used to say that the magician is one aspect of a life cycle. And he was talking about this in a performance sense, but I see this in a life sense. He said that when people start performing magic, they start off as tricksters. They learn loads of tricks, and their object is to fool people. They want to fool. They want to get one over on people. And you've all seen that kind of magic. Somebody gets a magic kit or, they want to fool you. And then once they've understood a bit of their craft, they move on and they want to maybe gain some power for themselves. So they become sorcerers. They move from trickster to sorcerer. But if the sorcerer evolves, and if the sorcerer gets stuck in their power, they never evolve. But if the sorcerer evolves, they become oracles. They actually understand the emotional connection people can have to their performance. their sorcery, and they become oracles, they become deeper thinkers. And as they mature, they may become a sage who teaches, who shares, who is a master. And then from that position, they can go around again and become tricksters, sorcerers, oracles, or sages. And we're all on that journey. So for me, when I look at the magician, I just see this really complicated character who is in themselves undergoing a journey of discovery, of self-discovery. And sometimes they will be tricksters. They will want to con and have a laugh and joke. Sometimes there'll be powerful sorcerers who want to manifest change. Sometimes there'll be gentle oracles who actually reflect on what they've learned and help others reflect. And sometimes they become teachers who teach other people the arts and the crafts involved with their particular magic. As I say, Jeff McBride and Eugene Berger presented that life cycle of the magician to workshops of performing magicians. But a number of those performing magicians came away and suddenly realized that what they were talking about wasn't just how to get up on stage and have an act. What they were talking about is the life cycle of all of us that as we go through our learning and our development in whatever sphere we're in. So bear that in mind. So this is the Frida Harris Crowley magician called the Magus. And the very first thing you might notice is it's strikingly different from from pardon me, from the Pamela Coleman Smith magician. And there's something a bit weird going on in this image, and a bit kind of like, well, it's kind of interesting. You can see, no doubt, elements that are moved from the magician that we've just seen, but this is a little bit weirder. So, what are the main colors? Well, blue, and there's a various shades of blue and an inverted pale blue void, and then there's a black void at the bottom that the magician is either standing on tiptoes on or is connected to. What is that? What's that? Is that the blue of the cosmos, the universe? What about the yellow or gold rays? Now, everything else is yellow and gold, notice, or textures of it. The character themselves is yellow and gold. Um, the the rays, whatever they are, the geometric rays are yellow or gold. So those are the primary colors, and squint at it and you get this kind of blue-ish background with these gold colors raised from it. Now, as you might expect with Crowley, there's a lot going on here. And of course, Frida Harris has got to be credited with this beautiful artwork. I think the Thoth Tarot deck is beautiful in its complexity, and the Rider Waite is beautiful in its simplicity. So what else? What else have we got here? What's the story? What is this character doing? Are they making contact with something? Are they kind of ready to explore the rays that are around them? Are they weaving the rays? Are they involved with bringing these rays, whatever they are, into some kind of pattern? Are they connecting? Notice the as above, so below pose is still there, but the palms are different. It's palm open and palm closed. Giving, receiving. Interesting idea. So what's the story? What's this character doing? And is the character happy? Insanely happy or mystically happy? And is the character male or female or androgynous? Good questions to think about. You may have your own take on this. And what else is there? Well, if we look carefully, we see there's the cup or the chalice, there's a sword, there's a staff, there's a pentacle, there's the Orphic egg, which is an egg with maybe a snake wrapped round. The Orphic egg. There's actually above the right hand, there's something with wings on it. I don't know. Could that be a Quidditch thing if you're into Harry Potter? I don't know. There's a caduceus, which is there in kind of suggestion. And then there's this monkey, this ape that's kind of raising its fist and maybe clinging to some of the webs that have been created. And then there are wings, they're wings on the feet. Or are they wings or are they raised? Are they raised? Or are those boosters of some spacecraft that are taking the character into space? Sorry, I'm exaggerating, but these are things to look at. Upon the right-hand side, uh, you have what looks like a roll of paper, the law, the book of the law. On the left-hand side, as you look at it, is that a pen? Is that a quill? Is that a quiver? Is the universe writing the mysteries and the magician understanding the writings? What's going on? What's happening? And what's the monkey doing? Notice here, by the way, at the bottom where it says the Magus, you have a symbol with a crescent moon, a circle, and a cross. That's the symbol for Mercury. There's a lot we could talk about Mercury, but that's for another time. And then to the right, there's a little kind of backward C shape. That's the Hebrew letter for house. Remember that, particularly with the Rider-Waite and the Crowley deck, Hebrew or Jewish mysticism crept in because they started to refer to the Kabbalah, the tree of life. And that's why that's there. So again, like the other cards, start with your initial reactions, move on to discerning the symbolic references, some of which are very similar to the other one. You need to understand the mystical references. That's do your research on the Morphic egg and the monkey. I'll give you a clue. It's Hanuman. That's the monkey. You might need to look that up. And in fact, it'll be in the notes to explore what's going on and what's the monkey doing. Is it being a naughty monkey? Is it being a helpful monkey? Is it the monkey that's actually doing the weaving or the pulling on the threads of the web of life? Oh, interesting idea. So who is the magician in this case? Well, you could actually say it's Hermes, yeah, or it's Mercury from the Greek mythology, but again, who is the magician? What is the magician with you? Interestingly, Hermes, not the delivery company, but they stole the name from that. Hermes was a messenger. Is the magician a messenger of the cosmos, or somebody who creates the cosmos, or a mixture of both? Okay. Now, these two cards are interesting because in some Thoth tarot decks, not all, they've stopped doing it now, but when you buy some Thoth decks, there are three magician cards. There's the one we've just seen, and these two. Now, the story is that Frida Harris designed the three magician cards, and Crowley couldn't decide which one he liked the best. So these two are often included in the Thoth tarot, not always, but often. And some people prefer these. I myself find the symbolism in the other one really much more meaningful. But here you can see elements of that symbolism within these two cards. And I thought it was important to point that out. If we go back for a moment, one of the reasons that this card for me has so much resonance, and you'll see it more later on, is to do with, let's call it the flow of energy, the rocket fuel I've been talking about at the bottom that come from the feet or around the feet. That can be seen as the magician pulling the energy of the rays of the cosmos and focusing it to do something with it. And what the magician does with it is open up to later cards in particular. So, with regards the Thoth deck, you may find yourself having three cards to choose from, and all I can say is you go along with the one that is resonates with you. I think with these two cards, when I bought my Crowley deck, I put them aside and I've never really worked with them, simply because that one means something more. So there we go. A quick introduction. There's a bit more in the text for you to look at, and there's a lot for you to consider this month. Now, next month we're going to look at the High Priestess card. She is the natural follow on from the magician. Now, one of the ways I would like you to think about the magician is that the magician is not an earthly person. Okay. The references for the magician are references to gods or deities or forces. And the same would be true for the high priestess. She is not necessarily to be seen to be a person, but a force. And I'll talk more about that later, certainly more about that next week, oh, sorry, next month, when we'll go deeper. So please get your journal out, get your cards out and study them and meditate with these cards. Whichever card you choose to be looking at, and now you've got the Fool and the Magician to look at. And it is really worthwhile you putting the Fool and the Magician together and seeing what you see, feeling what you feel, and seeing what things can be inspired by those two cards. I'll give you for instance, a starting point. If the Fool is innocence, then could the Magician be ego? Ooh, there's a thought for you. And so until next time, have a great month.